To the State of the Union podcast. We look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. Joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire, David Mosse, ladies and gentlemen, here on this Thursday, December 7th in the year 2023, a live State of the Union going out on all of our social media platforms out there. And why? Because it's a special occasion. We just have come off the set of the Copa America 2024 Copa America Draw. And if that wasn't enough just to have David Mosse with us, we also have our special friend, Stu Holden, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, surprise guest.
Also right off the set. And thank you, Stu, because I know in a few mere hours, you are going over to LAX and then immediately on a plane by way of Atlanta to the great city.
Yeah, I'm racking up these air miles, end of year push here. You know, Germany, Spain, Paris, back here to Ohio, Delta. Let's go.
Mosse, how you doing, by the way?
Doing well. I know you were in Hamburg for the Euro draw. We got through a draw today without any porno noise during the ceremony.
All right, well, listen, unlike the draw...
Said deadpan as well. I love it.
Unlike the draw that we just witnessed with all of the crazy stuff, don't bore us, get to the chorus. So we are going to go right into the draw. We're going to go through it group by group. We know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the U.S., but we'd like to, be respectful in terms of the groups that are laid out. So we're going to start with Group A. As everybody knows, this is a group of 16, or this is a tournament of 16 teams. Group A, we come to find out, Argentina, number one team in the world, Peru, Chile, and then the possibility, and I hope I get this right because there was a lot of discrepancy, a possibility of either our friends to the Great White North Canada or our friends to the South TNT, Trinidad and Tobago. All right, when you look at this Group A, I'll start with you over there, Stu, because you're hot off the presses, if you will. What stands out to you?
I think this is the group of life. I think this is the easiest group of them all because, look, when you look at this Peruvian team right now, I know they finished second. They finished into the semifinal in 2021, but they're last place in World Cup qualifying currently in CONMEBOL. They've yet to win a game. I think it's a weak team. Chile's struggling as well. They've recently just replaced their manager. And then you're either going to get a Canadian team, which this does not look like the team that we saw from the last cycle in CONCACAF.
We haven't seen that team at all.
Yeah, we haven't seen that team at all. I don't even know what to make of this. The interim head coach as well, John Herdman's moved on. So I think whoever you get out of that matchup, whoever's the qualifying team, Argentina's got to be pretty good. So that's the headlining team. Now, what Argentina are we going to get? Is this going to be Lionel Messi's potential last international tournament? Lionel Scaloni saying he might walk away as well after the Copa America. So this is still Argentina. I expect Argentina to absolutely roll through that.
By the way, if Canada does become that fourth team, first game against Argentina. Good luck with that to our friends to the Great White North. Mosse, Group A, anything stand out?
And Di Maria has already said he's retired.
That's his last game, yeah.
After the Copa America, so that's the first shoe to drop. And I agree with you. I'm curious to see if this will be the last dance, this Copa, or whether they'll keep it going until the
Messi's retired before,
Messi,
though, right?
Scaloni, et cetera. But yeah, I think Canada are one of the big winners of this draw. If they can get past TNT, which I think they will, this is a group they can get out of. I agree with you. Peru and Chile are two spent forces. Ricardo Gareca was a miracle worker with Peru. He's left. Reynoso is come and gone. They don't have a coach right now. Chile, they squeezed as much as they could out of that golden generation. Nothing has come up behind them. Your boy Berizzo just resigned. They don't have a coach right now. Canada doesn't have a permanent coach. That's kind of a theme in this group. But I do think all these teams by the summer will have sorted that out. And yeah, that would be the opening match of the tournament. Yes. Argentina, Canada in Atlanta. So that'd be a fun one to kick things off.
All right, so obviously a lot of the talk in this tournament is going to be about Messi, now playing in his backyard in the United States after coming to Inter Miami. And also the dynamic now of the world champions, Argentina, now going to defend their championship in 2026, but also now strutting on the field as world champions. And that can change the dynamic slightly. I hope that this is not the swan song. I hope that this isn't the end for Messi next summer. I hope he actually uses this summer to say, you know what? I feel good. I'm playing well. The team's playing well. And I hope that fire burns in him to want to defend it, because nobody would have begrudged him walking off, saying, goodbye, goodbye, and riding off into the sunset.
How do you feel about this Argentina team right now? I mean, are you as bullish as we were on them during the World Cup and what we saw them do? I mean, do you feel... Because I get the sense in listening to Scaloni, seeing and feeling some of the rumblings from underneath the surface, when you reach that level and you win a World Cup and you've won the Copa America, you've done almost everything perfectly, how do you find the ways now to motivate this team and keep them going one step further with an aging Lionel Messi? Angel Di Maria is going to be gone. So I'm kind of curious how you guys feel about how we look at this Argentine team, as your point saying, defending now, but not just for the Copa America, but then the World Cup as well. I know it's Argentina, and you've got Julian Alvarez and, Lautaro Martinez and all these guys. I don't know if I feel the same way about them as I did heading into the World Cup.
I do. I think they've made an incredibly strong start to this cycle. They had a recent loss to Uruguay, La Bombonera in qualifying, but other than that, they've been lights out. And as you mentioned, overall, it's not that aging of a squad. There are guys like Alvarez, Lautaro, Enzo Fernandez, McAllister in the midfield who have emerged. And so, no, I think they keep this going as long as they want to. They're in dreamland right now. They won the last Copa America. They won the World Cup. They're ranked #1 in the world. They've completely flipped the rivalry with Brazil. They just won at the Maracanã in qualifying. So I think they want to keep this going for as long as they can.
You were really bullish about Canada in this group. This is the first time I've heard that over the last couple of hours here. Do you have Argentina and Canada coming out of this group then?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
You are being knighted up there in the Great White North. I do not have Canada coming out of this group. I would go Argentina and let's go with Peru. All right, moving on to Group B. Our friends El Tri leading up that group. Keep in mind Mexico at ranked, and these are FIFA rankings. I know, take them for what they are, grain of salt and all that. But Mexico at 14. Mexico, Ecuador, Venezuela, Vinotinto, and Jamaica. All right. Stu, any first thoughts on Group B?
Yeah, look, Ecuador, I had a lot higher hopes for them at the last World Cup than I think they ended up achieving, not getting out of the group, which was very disappointing because I think, this is a team with tons of young talent. I mean, Ngapié right now doing excellent at Bayer Leverkusen. Estupiñán, I think, is one of the best left backs in the world. You're losing and moving on now in terms of Ener Valencia being gone, their all-time leading goal scorer. But weirdly, the team they beat in the first game of the World Cup now is their coach in Felix Sanchez from Qatar. And, he's actually had a pretty good start to life. So I think that's a strong team, going to be a difficult one for Mexico. They'll see them in the last match, Mexico and Jamaica. I mean, that's, a game we see consistently in Gold Cups and in CONCACAF. Jamaica, man, they can cause Mexico problems. This is a Mexican team. And I think it's something we should talk about is in terms of their confidence. Where are they at? Jaime Lozano, Jimmy Lozano, Lamborghini, like they win the Gold Cup. They had the strongest team than anybody in that Gold Cup. Everybody else, essentially, the United States had a B team. So, I'm not convinced that Mexico, this is them back and they've got their mojo back. I think they waited too long to move on from that generation of Guardado and Hector Herrera and, Chicharito, those players. And we've yet to kind of see what we've seen from the U.S., which is that next generation emerge. Come up against Jamaica, who keep finding these dual nationals and bringing over Michael Antonio and Premier League players that have good quality. I think Jamaica could cause an upset in that first game.
Mosse?
Remember on Mexico, if not for an Edson Alvarez goal in the 11th minute of stoppage time, they would be in Group D in this draw as CONCACAF Playoff B having a
crazy
Costa Rica in the playoff just to get in the Copa America. But yeah, you rattled off some of the Ecuador players. One guy you left out is this 16-year-old Kendry Paez, who has already scored in World Cup qualifying. I think he's a potential story in this tournament.
Moises Caicedo.
Moises Caicedo, obviously.
Yep.
And Kendry Paez has already signed with Chelsea. He'll go there when he turns 18, where he'll be a teammate of Moises Caicedo. So, yeah, Ecuador, this is a really interesting group, very balanced. Venezuela, they're the only CONMEBOL nation not to qualify for a World Cup. They're one of only two CONMEBOL nations not to win a Copa America, Ecuador being the other. But Venezuela has made a strong start to qualifying. They're an interesting team as well. So, this group is fascinating to me.
This pendulum that we always talk about when it comes to Mexico and the U.S. and the compare and contrast going on, it has swung well towards the U.S. and it is stuck there now for a while. And to your point, Stu, they all are kind of looking around, kind of like Germany right now. It's all just looking around and saying, yeah, but in Germany's case, we're Germany, or Mexico. Yeah, but we're Mexico, and just hoping for everything to come good from the soccer gods, but not a whole lot in the pipeline there. And I think for the mental health, if you will, of the fans, the Mexican El Tri fans, for the press, and I think even more internally for this team, they need to have a good summer. And this is a theme that we're going to talk a lot about relative to 2026. Is what 2024 and the Copa America presents for these teams and how they can use it to drive forward into 2026. And I think if anybody out there needs a good 26 or a good 24 Copa America, it's Mexico. But they're going to have their hands full. But right off the bat, they get to play against Jamaica. They know Jamaica. I think they would feel confident playing again in the U.S. And this is the other thing with a lot of these teams.
They're America's
number
one home
Mexico,
team, in fact.
By the way. There's a lot of these teams that have huge fan bases over here. And so the home team, if you will, when we start watching these games next summer, it's going to be really interesting to see what the makeup is of the crowd. How much is for one side, how much is for the other side going forward, and how much an advantage that is.
Yeah.
All right.
Just quickly on that, though, because I think Mosse brought up a point about the coaches at the beginning. And, you've got coaches in South America, coaches being fired in qualifying. Jimmy Lozano was hired as an interim head coach to lead the team through the Gold Cup. He gets the job permanently. First Mexican head coach now since Herrera, the last one. But if he doesn't do well in the Copa America, fuera. Out. I mean, it's the same way when you think this is going to be his first big tournament as a head coach. He did well with Mexico in the Olympics, but that's under 23. Now this is the big stage. They have to perform, much like Greg Berhalter. We're going to talk about pressure on coaches throughout these experiences. But if he doesn't get it right, Mexico, they're not afraid to cut that coach, and he's going to be out, and they'll be looking for somebody else to 26.
And the way this tournament is set up in terms of the groups, your first games are against the lower-ranked team. Whether they're inferior, it remains to be seen. But a lot of these teams, at least on paper, have the opportunity to build up to that third game when, again, on paper, it is the most competitive going forward. All right. We're not burying the lead, but like we said, we wanted to be respectful and go through the groups here. Group C, the United States group, USA, Uruguay, Panama, and Bolivia. If I am Greg Berhalter right now, he's probably in a car heading back to a very fancy hotel and maybe a very fancy meal there in Miami. I'm licking my chops. I am saying this is a great group. This is a winnable group. This is a group that is competitive. And I think you said on air today, Stu, that you do want to have some competition in this, especially given the fact that we're not going to have a lot of competition when it comes to the U.S. Again, the U.S. will play Bolivia first. If the U.S. can't find a way to beat Bolivia in the United States in 2024 in a Copa America, then we got much bigger problems. Then Panama, we know them well. Good team, not a great team, and the U.S. should be favored, and the U.S. should, therefore, in those first 2 games, I would be disappointed if they came out with anything less than 6 points. 2 wins right there. So now you're sitting on the opportunity to win the group against the biggest competition, which is Uruguay. Everybody I've talked to in the hallways, and you guys here, they're not scared, but it's, whoa, this is Uruguay. I'm not as scared as Uruguay as you guys. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, look, this is a nation historically, again, going all the way back to the beginnings of World Cups. Copa America is one of the most successful historic nations, especially considering their size. But I think, when you look back at recent World Cups, I mean, 2010, they had a good run to a semifinal. In the last World Cup, they were not as good as we've seen them before. The one before, they lose to a Portuguese team that was good. But they have real talent, man. You think about Valverde, a player playing at Real Madrid, Darwin Núñez playing at Liverpool, Pelistri is one of the exciting young players at Manchester United. They're stacked from front to back. And now they have the one, the only Marcelo Bielsa as the coach. And I think he's found a style that suits this team better than previous coaches have, because they had a coach for, 30, 40 years, is one of the longest standing. Tabarez is one of the longest standing international coaches of all time. But now you've got a coach that is playing a high-octane, powerful style. They beat Argentina in World Cup qualifying. They beat Brazil. And I just think that they play in a way that's so in your face and difficult with the type of physical characters and also a little bit of nastiness as well.
Definitely.
That I think they makes them a difficult opponent. And it's showing right now in qualifying. And I think they're going to mean business in the Copa America. That's why I love this test for the U.S., though. I love it.
Are they better than the Netherlands?
Are they better than the Netherlands?
Because that's like a touchstone right now, is that Netherlands game.
I would take them in a one-off against the Netherlands.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Mosse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a great draw in terms of advancing, but a terrible draw in terms of winning the group. They got the toughest Pot 2 team they could have gotten. In fact, I think Uruguay is the second best team in this tournament behind Argentina. I'm very high on them, as Stu is. As you know, I'm a Bielsa groupie. So. Yep. But yeah, that midfield, Valverde, Bentancur, Ugarte, the PSG player. They've got a guy in Araujo at the back who I think is one of the best defenders in the world. The center forward dynamic is interesting. Núñez has clearly emerged. He's the top scorer in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. They did recall Suarez for the last 2 qualifiers. He's now going to Inter Miami. We'll see how he does there. He was just voted, by the way, the Player of the Year in the Brazilian League. And so, if Suarez is on the team come next summer, is he going to be comfortable just being the understudy to Núñez? Or is there a discussion there over how they're going to divvy up those minutes?
But to be able to bring off the bench a guy like Suarez is pretty good, as long as he doesn't take over the show. But it doesn't strike me that he's...
It's just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, the way the schedule lays out, the fact that the U.S. and Uruguay play Panama and Bolivia first, presumably they'll both win those 2 games. And then it comes down to that showdown at Arrowhead to see who tops the group. And I think there's a good chance the U.S. finishes second, which could set up a quarterfinal matchup with Brazil, which we'll get to in a minute.
Okay, so let's delve a little bit more into the U.S. in particular. While we've talked all about the pressure and the opportunity that exists next summer for this U.S. team, and this U.S. team that is, again, I said on air today, they're no longer young, all right? They're no longer green. They've been through a World Cup process. They've been blooded, and therefore our expectations should be higher. I think the person that is under the most pressure is going to be Greg Berhalter. I think that this is a huge and vital and important summer for Greg Berhalter. So much so that if it does not go well, I think that there is a change made. Keep in mind, this is a Greg Berhalter who was given a second chance, and a lot of people felt that he didn't deserve that second chance. This is a Greg Berhalter who I think is on a short leash when it comes to Matt Crocker, who hired him. And not that he didn't hire him because he felt he was the best to do the job, or that he didn't feel that he would get to 2026. But if there ever came a point where he felt it was not heading in the right direction, not only do I think he would do it, it's his responsibility to do that next summer. And if it does not go well for the U.S. and Greg Berhalter, I would absolutely see U.S. soccer making a change here. And you know what? It would be legitimate. That's how important 2026 is to this team and obviously to the sport. You cannot afford to screw around when it comes to 2026. And so if you even have an inkling that it's not going in the direction that you want it to do, you have, like I said, you have a responsibility to make the change. And I think Greg Berhalter understands that.
But also your only time to make that change.
True.
Really, if you want to give a new coach an opportunity to have a longer leash. And look, we can't overstate enough that this is the biggest moment for the United States before the World Cup. The only real time. Look, friendlies are friendlies. I know you can schedule against some of the best teams in the world. When you're playing them in a friendly environment as opposed to a game in a knockout situation with a trophy on the line, it's not even comparable.
Qualifying process.
In the qualifying process, the same. The intensity is not the same. And so now for this team, to your point, have played one major tournament now at a World Cup and have had some pretty good performances, but yet there's no marquee win. There's no marquee performance that has gone along with the 3 points and a big win where they can look back and say, you know, the England game I thought was excellent, but it was a tie, 0-0 tie. We didn't score. We didn't create enough chances. The Netherlands game, sure, there was some chances. Pulisic should have scored at the chance. We lost. We got smashed at the end of that game. So now, I mean, for you guys, what is success for this U.S. team in the Copa America? I mean, when you look at this, is quarterfinals, but a great performance against Brazil and we lose on penalties?
I think semifinals.
Semifinals or bust.
This team has to get to. Yeah, I think this team needs to get to the semifinals. And this is, by the way, this is not some historic feat. It's been done twice before by U.S. teams in Copa Americas. And if this is the group that we think it is, and that everybody says it is, then that's not ridiculous. I'm sick of the low expectations at this point. All right, and. To your point,
are they unrealistic expectations?
I don't think that they're unrealistic.
How good is this team?
I don't think they're unrealistic. And Greg Berhalter, actually, on the interview with Jenny before the draw, was talking about we don't want to compete anymore. We want to actually beat these teams that we're talking about. I don't care how they do it. It really doesn't matter to me anymore. I want to win. I want to go up against these big teams, whether it's the Netherlands, whether it's in Uruguay or anybody else. When people say, you know what, this is a better team, and the U.S. finds a way to win. Mosse.
By the way, I looked this up. You played in the 93 and 95.
I did, yes.
America's Stu was 7 and 9 years old when he was playing.
Appreciate that.
I think this draw makes it completely unacceptable for the U.S. to go out in the group stage, but a bit more acceptable to go out in the quarterfinals. If they, presumably it would be Brazil or Colombia in the quarterfinals, if they play well, lose a close game to one of those teams, I don't think Greg Berhalter would be fired off that. I think we're all projecting onto Matt Crocker the way we think things should be, but I've not gotten any vibe from him that this Copa America is that make or break, semifinals or bust. He went through that exhaustive process. He rehired Greg Berhalter, felt like he was the right guy to steer the U.S. for another cycle, 2026. Yeah, if something disastrous happens before then, he would pull the plug on it. But I don't know that losing a competitive game to Brazil in a
So you're satisfied with moral victories going forward?
Sure.
Well, we'll get to your Brazil in a second. Evidently, that's the attitude going forward. When it comes to anybody else in this group, does everybody agree here that those first two games, there should be an expectation of winning, getting 6 points in the first two games? Yes. And so then it comes down to that third game. And to your point, the possibility exists that if you don't finish first in the group, that you end up playing Brazil.
I was very impressed by the way Panama smoked Costa Rica in that Nations League quarterfinal.
Oh, listen, Panama's a good team, not a great team.
The U.S. some trouble over the years, so yeah, no, absolutely.
That's not going to be a 3-4-0 game for the United States. I mean, Thomas Christensen's a good coach. They went to the Gold Cup final once again. They knocked out a U.S. B team, B/C team in the Gold Cup, but there's history there. That's going to be a lot of emotion. That's going to be an intense game. But I don't think in terms of the way that the tournament is set up, it couldn't set up any nicer for the U.S. The weakest opponent in the tournament in Bolivia first, Panama second, going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. But, you know, this is something we talked about a little bit on the broadcast. Part of a tournament as well is that there's tournaments within the tournaments. So you have the group stage, which is the beginning, but it's about setting yourself up to then be successful in the knockouts. And as a coach and as a team, you have to find a way to be able to peak in the right moments. So I think the U.S. has got to think about, like, let's say they get 3 points against Bolivia. They get 3 points against Panama. You've now booked your ticket to the next round. It gives you a little bit of liberties to think about that last group match against Uruguay and the way in which you approach it personnel-wise, to think, look, do we go for it here and we smash through and give it our all against Uruguay? I'd like to see that because I think these are our only chances to play these teams. So maybe you play a little bit of a weaker team against Panama, but then you're risking the last game. But this is about Greg Berhalter learning how to play his way through a tournament. You know, Lex, load management, your favorite,
oh, God,
favorite thing.
Don't start me. Don't start me. Don't think me, okay? Mosse, let's get to Group D here, okay?
Yes.
Brazil, Colombia, Paraguay, and either Costa Rica or Honduras. I'll let you take this, my friend.
Should we step aside and let him...
I mean, listen, you've been very vocal about what this Brazil team is and, more importantly, what this Brazil team isn't. How do you think Brazil is feeling right now?
First off, I'd like to address something that took place tonight that really annoyed me.
Okay.
I put together a graphic for our TV show chronicling Brazil's disastrous 2023. If you're watching us, I think we're going to throw it up now.
This did piss him off. This was great.
I came up with what I thought was a very clever title, Brazil's Anos Horribles, which is Latin for bad year. Queen Elizabeth famously used this in 1992 to describe a terrible year where Windsor Castle almost burned down, et cetera. And both our producer, Johnny Araya, and our graphics person, Mark Mason, thought that said anus.
Yeah, I thought it said Brazil's horrible anus, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
It works either way.
And thought it'd be inappropriate to put on television, so they changed it. I think they said Brazil's bad beat.
They're not cultured.
We would have been awful announcing it, at least.
I've been saying that we have to start hiring more cultured people at Fox. I'm trying to elevate things, and I'm dealing with these imbeciles. But okay, listen, a couple things. We've talked about the coaching situation ad nauseum, the decision to wait for Ancelotti until the summer of 2024, and it doesn't sound like it's even a sure thing that he's coming. So that was absolutely chaotic. But a point I made recently on the podcast is there's a larger, more macro issue with Brazil. Brazil is becoming a country that produces lots of good players, but not as many great players as they did in the past. There's a quantity over quality element to Brazil's talent pool. I have some theories as to why. I think it has to do with some of the issues regarding the structure of Brazilian football. I mentioned that on the pod. Alexi didn't totally buy what I was saying. But whatever the reason why, I think we all agree. And in fact, you made that point on TV tonight that when you look at Brazil lineups now, lots of good players, but from a star power standpoint, it doesn't pop as much as it used to.
And so much of that is fallen to Neymar's shoulders. And I think it's why it makes sense that he feels so much pressure when he's wearing that great yellow shirt. And if he doesn't produce the moment, then Brazil aren't on the same level. And, you know, that's why you see the emotion from him. And now he's injured out with an ACL. And I watched this Brazilian team over the past couple of games. And sure, the game against Argentina, you know, there's fight, there's bite, there's kicking, there's shoving, there's pushing, there's red cards, there's everything. But yet, I don't think for a single second, and I know we talk about pendulum swinging, that Argentina stand on that field now and they look at Brazil in the Maracanã or wherever and they think, oh, man, I don't think we got a shot today. They went and beat them for the first time in Brazil's history. That stat blew me away. Yeah. That was their first home loss. But, you know, whether it's Vinicius, Rodrigo, Richarlison, Gabriel Jesus, all very good players, but none of them in the category of Fenomeno, you know, the Romario, Cafu, like it just doesn't. I just don't look at this team in the same way. So, to me, I'm interested what really comes of Brazil now in this next cycle, because it's been since 2002 since a World Cup. Last Copa America was 2019, but yeah, they're not in the same level.
The silver lining of the Neymar injury is I'm hoping it creates the space for somebody to emerge, and we might see it at this Copa America. Could it be a Vinicius or Rodrigo or somebody even younger like an Endrick or a Vitor Roque, two players who your Mallorca are going to be facing in La Liga pretty soon? So, yeah, I think that's the story. Are we going to see some new players emerge or players like Vinicius and Rodrigo take a step forward and show that they can carry that responsibility? So, yeah, it's a fascinating tournament for Brazil.
How much of this do you feel is on the coaching situation? Because never in my life did I imagine Brazil sitting there waiting for a coach to come and coach for them. I mean, this is Brazil.
It's ridiculous.
Well, you know, after the latest World Cup failure, there was this feeling that the time has finally come for Brazil to hire a foreign manager, that it's not working with Brazilian coaches. There's this feeling in Brazil that Brazilian coaches have fallen behind and you really need an elite manager if you got to look elsewhere. And so they landed on Ancelotti. He's a guy that was receptive to the idea of coaching Brazil, but he did have this stipulation. He said he'll serve out his contract at Real Madrid, which runs until the summer of 2024. So then, you know, it became this issue. The Brazilian media does talk out of both sides of its mouth sometimes, because Brazil has had cycles where they were lights out in qualifying, won Copa Americas, Confederations Cups, Olympics, but then they bomb out at the World Cup, and the consensus is, well, the cycle was a failure, then nothing else matters other than the World Cup. So the Brazilian Federation did take the long view for once and say, the best manager we think we can get to win the next World Cup is Ancelotti, so we'll piece it together the first half of the cycle. Who cares if we lose a bunch of games there? As long as he takes over come 2024 and he leads us to the next World Cup, the story could have a happy ending. So it's an interesting approach. I mean, it's a larger philosophical debate about how important is having a coach in place at the start of a cycle for that 4-year project. You know, you guys are talking about the U.S. possibly firing Greg Berhalter after the Copa America. Then you'd have to bring in somebody with just 2 years left until the World Cup. So the U.S. will be confronted with that dilemma too. So, Yeah, so it's a very interesting conversation as far as what's going on. You look like you're dying to say something.
What he's doing is just winding up, ready to unleash on Brazil right now.
I'm done. I'm done with Brazil, all right? I mean, if you're playing the drinking game at home, Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? And they haven't done anything for anybody lately. And I think that they are living off of this yellow jersey, and they're living off of this past and this history. And to your point, they don't scare me. They don't scare me individually, and they don't scare me as a team right now. They're a bunch of posers. And I think that they're a bunch of paper. How do you say tiger in Portuguese?
Tigre.
Tigre. They're a bunch of paper tigres.
So we keep saying, oh my God, the U.S. could end up facing Brazil in the quarterfinals. But you would say, bring it on.
Exactly. Bring it on. And if rumors are to be true, and our own
Doug McIntyre.
Sorry. Dougie Mac, we had all his nicknames for him today on set. Doug McIntyre was reporting that there's a possibility that the U.S. could actually play Brazil before the tournament starts. So maybe they'll get 2 bites at Brazil going forward, or maybe they just win their group. You know? No, I am not buying this Brazil team. It doesn't mean the U.S. can't lose to them, and it doesn't mean they're not talented right now. But we've given them the benefit of the doubt now. Why am I the Brazilian that you Brazilians need in order to say this? This should have been said a long time ago.
We should acknowledge the other 3 teams in this group. We've been talking about Brazil for 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
Colombia.
Colombia, who recently beat Brazil in qualifying thanks to a double by Luis Diaz. Remember how great he was at the last Copa America? Yeah. Some of the goals he scored in that tournament.
The bike.
Unbelievable. He was the breakout star of that tournament. He's blossomed into an even bigger star since then with Liverpool. It is amazing, though. Colombia missed the last World Cup, which was shocking to everybody. They had a stretch in qualifying where they went 7 straight games without scoring a goal.
Crazy.
Which seems impossible with players like James Rodriguez and Luis Diaz and Juan Cuadrado. But I think they're looking pretty good so far in this cycle. They've got a coach, Néstor Lorenzo.
A mess at the moment, though.
Yeah, Paraguay, they can be frisky. If Enciso comes back healthy, Miguel Almiron, they've got some guys. And then I think Costa Rica or Honduras is cannon fodder in this group, whoever gets in.
Agreed.
Well, listen, when we're talking about this tournament in totality, I think it's really, really interesting that obviously, these two confederations are coming together for this special Copa America. I think we can argue about Brazil and Argentina, something like that, but if you're coming at it from a CONMEBOL type of perspective, doesn't matter who wins as long as it is a CONMEBOL team. Because God forbid, from their perspective, a CONCACAF team, I guess they're all guest teams, even though they've been playing in the U.S., God forbid a CONCACAF team were to win. How sweet would that be if it was the United States and Greg Berhalter, who ended up being the champions of South America? That would be unbelievable. I would love, love, love to see that.
And I know, even though this tournament is being held in the United States and they love the money and the eyeballs that the U.S. brings, you think the way this whole draw was handled tonight, there was an element of CONMEBOL flexing its muscle a little bit. We're not going to have an American up on stage.
What the hell was that?
The graphics are going to be Estados Unidos. It's not going to be USA. I know you guys had a big issue with that.
Well, at least, there is one thing that they paid homage to was Capitan.
Oh, yeah.
Mascot.
Yeah,
right? We got to talk about the mascot because there was, as much as there was multiple versions of the grouping situation, there was also multiple versions of the mascot that came out. Capitan had a wonderful, entrance onto the stage, which I love Capitan, but I also love the new Capitan.
You have a new
Capitan? Have you seen the new Capitan?
No, do we have it? Do we have a new Capitan?
Can we throw it up here?
Sean, can we throw it up here?
Sean, throw up the Capitan here.
Now, keep in mind that when it comes to mascots, Stu, you were in Germany last week, right?
Teddy
they
bear
love a mascot, all right? And for those that have watched, anybody that's been around in soccer for any length of time, you will have watched these draw shows. And at times they can be very confusing. They will make you scratch your head. At times there are awkward pauses and strange types of performances.
Strange noises.
Tonight we had a TED Talk, right, to kick the whole thing off, and then we actually went into the actual show. And then, look, as far as I'm concerned,
that's a good mascot.
Look, red hair, good. All right, eagle or some bird, good.
Well, we lost it.
And then you put my head on it. Stu, this is what Stu does.
That's what
Stu's
I do
a pro, right?
Time,
He's a pro. There he is. He's off. I mean, that's not even photoshopping. That is like, it's ridiculous, but it is kind of funny.
I think that's a good-looking Capitan.
It is kind of funny. Anyway, this is the mascot for next summer.
No, this is for the State of the Union.
This is for the State of the Union, by the way. So next summer, back to your point there. I know we joke about it a little bit, but why wasn't there an American on stage as a host?
Why not you? You were part of that team that made it to the semifinals in '95. A run that did end against Brazil, by the way.
I'm a pretty good ball picker.
Oh, no, you're the...
Oh, there's some highlights of that game. '95, Brazil, USA.
Whoa, look at that.
Look at you, guarding Edmundo, the animal.
The animal. Lock at this crap.
Oh, is that Aldair with the header?
No, that's not my guy. No.
Who was in goal there? Was that Miola?
That's Casey, I think.
Where's Casey?
Yeah.
I'll get a look at it there.
Oh, no, wait. No, that's Friedel. Friedel with hair. That's a hair with Friedel.
You know, you guys...
And air.
You guys, you lost the semifinal to Brazil.
Yep.
You then mailed in the third-place game against Colombia, which you always tell me is one of the great regrets of your career. I spoke to Kobe Jones recently during one of our U17 World Cup telecasts. I brought that up, and he said, Alexi's right. I think about that, too. You know, you don't get that many chances to play for the U.S. in a major tournament like the Copa America, and who are we to look down on a third-place game, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, you live and learn, right? You grow, you live and learn. All right, listen. Next summer is going to be fun. We've talked about the fact that we are going to have breakfast or brunch, if you will, with the Euros, and then segue right into lunch, dinner, whatever you want when it comes to Copa America. Again, we now know much better what this pathway looks like for the U.S. As we start to wrap this up, and it's starting to sink in as to who they're playing, what's going to happen here. I think we all would want, and I think expect, to be quite honest, that this is a success as a tournament. Mm-hmm. We saw what happened in the Copa Centenario, raised a tremendous amount of money, and it was incredibly successful. And again, as a kind of opening band to what is coming in 2026, this is going to be fun. This is going to be yet another fun summer of soccer going forward. Are there any things that you haven't talked about today that you're looking forward to now as we hit the next 11 months?
I just think if you're a U.S. fan and you're starting to think about, you know, what should you be looking for when it comes to this tournament? I mean, like, the biggest concerns for the U.S. are depth. I think we have a pretty good starting 11. I feel good about the little pieces and decisions we have to make. But what does our roster look like from now until 26, from 12 to 18? That I think is going to decide how far we can really go. So that's one thing to be looking for. The second part is, how does this style continue to evolve now for Greg Berhalter to not only, you know, against CONCACAF opponents look good, dominate with the ball, but against big teams, find ways to win. Because I'm with you. I'm tired of the let's look competitive and let's talk about, wow, on Black Friday we looked so good against England, but we tied. Let's beat these teams. Let's have a marquee performance, a marquee win for this team to look at as kind of the measuring stick of where we should really be going forward. So I'm excited because I think we finally start to get some real answers across the board.
My friend? You mentioned the U.S. has a strong starting 11. An 11 that, if it was up to you, would it have Timmy Way at right back? That was a big take you dropped on our show tonight.
I'm trying to get the best 11 players on the field, all right?
That's ridiculous.
Can I just say,
Serginho's thrown his toys out of the stroller, so he's on the bench for now.
My one larger point is that given that World Cup qualifying has already started in CONMEBOL, this tournament will be occurring against the backdrop of World Cup qualifying, and it's taking place in the country where the next World Cup is being held. I really feel like this Copa America is part of the run-up to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It really gets us in that mode and thinking about that.
Who's going to win?
The Copa America? I'm going to go with Uruguay.
Oh, jeez. Really?
Yeah.
You really like, God, he's really smart. That's why
although, can I just say something? Stu tried to pass Uruguay off as a sleeper on our show today.
Typical.
That's a joke.
When was the last time we won? 2011?
The 15-time champions.
Last time we won in 2011? Come on, I was 7-9 when this guy played in it. Come on.
Not since Doug McIntyre picking Germany as his World Cup dark horse have I heard something so ridiculous.
What we've seen from Uruguay in this most recent qualifying cycle, you would have had in the last Copa America would have been what?
All right, so who are you picking?
I'm going to go with Argentina.
You're going to go with Argentina. Yeah. So now Uruguay and Argentina have been picked. I'm not going with Brazil.
Pick the U.S.
Huh? I'll pick the U.S. I'll even pick Mexico. but I'll pick U.S., right? All right, listen, a couple of things, and I mentioned it on the broadcast today that I'm looking for in 2024. Number one is continued competition. There can be nobody that is set in stone when it comes to this group. And I know, again, we have fostered this group from little seedlings, and now they have grown into these incredible trees. But I don't want us to get complacent. I don't want Greg Berhalter or that staff to get complacent. And if there is somebody else that emerges over the next couple of years, and I hope that there is, we have to be able to say, you know what? You took us this far, but there might be somebody else that's better. We might see them next summer. Who knows? We might see them in the 2 years leading up to 2026. But I want that type of competition. The other thing I mentioned is the drama. I think we've had enough drama off-field. I'm talking about off-field drama for this team to last a lifetime. All right? So I want this to go, it's never going to go perfectly. But I don't want to have to deal with all the crap outside. Save the drama for your mama, all right? I don't want to have to deal with parents getting involved. I don't want to have to deal with Greg Berhalter off in a TED Talk doing that kind of stuff. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to deal with lawsuits or anything like that. I want to concentrate on the task at hand because that's how important it is.
From your lips.
Exactly. That's how important it is to soccer going forward. And in order to do well in 2026, as I mentioned, I think this U.S. team and Greg Berhalter have to use 2024, and that's why it's so important next summer. So those are things that I'm wishing for when it comes to 2024
Last question.
and beyond.
I know you're heading to Columbus. Who do you got winning MLS Cup?
Look, I was doing my work this morning ahead of the game, and I think a lot of the stats are favored in Columbus's way and the way in which they're so good at home. They're a team that has scored the most goals at home, yada, 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 down the list. I just think that LAFC have got a little bit something different. Could be Carlos Vela's last game for LAFC. Could be Chiellini's last match as a professional. And I think having the experience from having won last year and the way in which they did, I think they walk into Lower.com Stadium and they say to the crew, thanks very much. I think you're going to get LAFC repeat.
Wow.
You?
I do too. I think so too. But I will say this. You know, we were in Columbus for the last MLS Cup.
Yeah.
And
1,500 people there or something,
sucked.
right?
I mean, it sucked. It was in old Mafre Stadium, and there was a limit because it happened right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. 1,500 people limit there. I am glad that Columbus is getting to celebrate what they have done, their resurrection. They have risen from the ashes, if you will. Incredible Wilfred Nancy, that organization, the ownership, obviously that incredible community, a wonderful new stadium and environment that they have down there that is going to be on display. We'll see if they are, at the end of the day, also champions. But regardless,
I mean, they were down 2-0 against the number one team in the league and came back and won. So who have you got?
LAFC. Let's make it 3 for 3.
So 3 LAFC. The betting odds have it very even.
Really?
With maybe a slight little nod to Columbus.
All right, so you're off to LAX and off to Columbus. Do you take any sleep aids when you go do an overnight flight?
The odd melatonin here and there, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but you know me, man. I run hard all day and then I just crash.
That's true. Well, listen, we appreciate you spending a little time, extra time. I know you could have been with your family.
I'm going to do an AMA. I'm going to do an Alexi AMA from the Red Eye.
There we go, 37,000 feet. There we go.
Hello.
Ask Stu anything.
Hello, sunshine.
For all of you that are up in the middle of the night, Stu's up there cruising across this beautiful land from coast to coast, or at least to the Midwest over there. All right, safe travels over there. We will watch you this Saturday on MLS Cup. Can't wait to see.
Thanks for having me, gents, as always.
Thanks to everybody that's tuned in. We are doing this, as we said, on all the different platforms out there. We will continue to do it going forward. We have a good time. Thank you for everybody that is tuning in. This is exciting stuff. And while I know we sometimes talk about problems that we have and when it comes to soccer on and off the field, there is so much more good, positive stuff going forward. And whether it's Copa America or anything else out there, the future is bright, my friends, on and off the field. Keep reviewing and writing and subscribing and doing all the different things you do when it comes to the State of the Union podcast with myself and my good friend David Mosse here. Until next week, when we'll be back with more State of the Union podcasts, size the day.